Hello and welcome back to our Canada's Used Car Week live stage. I'm your host, Joe Overby, Senior Editor of Auto Remarketing Canada. That's easy for me to say. And I'm joined today by Jim Hamilton, Christy Fines, and JP Tangreda of the Used Car Dealers Association of Ontario. But you guys recently rebranded to
United Car Dealers Association.
Excellent. And they are one of our proud sponsors here at Canada's Used Car Week. Great to see you all. Thanks for joining the live stage.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of the challenges that you guys are seeing in the used car market for dealers in Ontario, and how is UCDA aiming to help its dealer partners?
Well, I think some of the challenges I'm directly having experienced recently, and I know there was a great discussion yesterday, was in terms of auto theft, and seeing vehicles being rebinned and, vehicles being stolen off dealers' lots, causing insurance premiums to rise, and, hearing some of the discussion about that and how we're going to try and combat that. And, with UCDA, we're working closely with some of our vendors to get data and information to dealers and help, get some best practices out there to help combat some of those struggles.
Now, is the vehicle theft, and I asked this because it's talked about this on a kind of some of our transportation and logistics panels at our US event, that it's vehicle theft is not always the like the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, where somebody's coming in and hotwiring the vehicle and getting out of there. But a lot of it is through, online, fraud and changing load boards and, more of the actors who are using technology to get to the vehicles in a apparently legitimate way. Are you guys seeing some of that same things that the fraudsters are using high tech to get these vehicles?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in part of just, the pre-planning, like you say, premeditated, but in additionally, the fraud and the ID fraud that's now come on, the banks wanting to see, and we want to see that these people are actually who they say they are when they buy a vehicle.
Yeah.
Doing so can lead a dealer down the wrong track and get yourself into trouble. So very important. Again, one of the things that we're going through, any well-run dealer will tell you it's becoming more complex. It's becoming a little bit harder to navigate. But if you keep your finger on the button and on top of all the things that are happening, and the UCDA is great for that, because what we do is we educate people, educate dealers on what they need to stay abreast of. And this year alone, I mean, there's been so many things that have come on. If you're not ready, if you're not on board, and all this stuff is not just snap your fingers takes place, you better be ready and start getting yourself prepared. Because like you say, the fraudsters are 10 steps ahead of us. So we need to start preparing and make sure you have your risk management assessed and what you're dealing with. So yeah.
And the kind of the same side of that coin is the Minister Z Hamid said yesterday in your panel that you have to use good AI to fight the bad AI. You have to use the same kind of technologies that these criminals are using to be able to combat the strategies they have. But and we've got a session today with a member of the police force of the Peel, to talk about vehicle fraud and theft and that sort of thing. But there's also the element of the other side of the law and the regulators who are governing what folks in the business can do. How are you kind of working with your dealers to make sure that they stay on the right side of compliance, be it financing, marketing, retail, that kind of thing? What are some compliance measures you guys are working with your dealers on?
Yeah, so it's important that dealers are looking at their internal structures to combat fraud and theft, but also to stay on the right side of OMVIC, the regulator in Ontario anyways. It's just become so much more important as the regulation has become intense. The regulator is quite active and they are looking at the files. So at the end of the day, we tell dealers that a well-structured dealer file on a transaction is important to protect them, not just from the regulator, but also from fraud and theft. Asking the right questions and making sure you're documenting these things is proving to be an antidote to some of the fraud and theft that's going on. And as I say, it also keeps the regulator at bay.
Well, to shift gears a little bit, I mean, most people know that, used cars are sold by both independent dealers and franchise dealers, but very, very different business models. How is the landscape different in Canada and within Ontario for independent used car dealers versus franchise dealers that also sell used?
So you get a bit of both of us here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a franchise dealer.
Yeah, and I'm an independent dealer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we go through different struggles.
Yep.
I mean, very similar. I know
Mhm.
hard working and there's never ending days.
Yep.
But no, as far as the struggles we go through, I think I almost feel like your hands are almost more tied being attached to manufacturer. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we're heavily, I want to say, new car focused at times, depending on what part of the month. But the used car business for us is also super important for our shops and parts departments and everything. I would say from a franchise point of view, we're lucky in the amount of trade-ins and stuff we get. We rely less maybe on external buying, if that,
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing a volume of deals. I mean,
yeah.
many more deals than we're putting together. So I must be taking trades, and that helps you fill your used car lot a little
Yep.
bit further. And
We work with
Yeah.
DeRosier, who does surveys for our members on a fairly regular basis, and these surveys are illustrative. They're very interesting. And we find that franchise dealers are obtaining their used vehicles primarily through trade-ins from consumers,
Yeah.
whereas independents are still heavily reliant on the auction as the main source for their used vehicle inventory. And that is interesting because it raises different kinds of concerns. So Christy and her operation will be asking and needing to ask different questions when they're taking trade-ins from consumers than John would be, say, if he was at open lane buying vehicles at the auction. Important questions, but in different ways. Right?
Going back to a panel I had this morning, with some of the wholesale folks and the people you guys might be buying used cars from, how has the changed landscape of the Canadian wholesale market impacted your acquisition strategies? I mean, it used to be so many brick and mortar auctions. Now it's more online channels, different players coming in and out. How has that impacted the way you guys go about finding used cars?
Yeah, it's hard. Like I know
Yeah.
for me, like we do we do go on the auctions every week.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're bidding on a lot of cars to only win a small amount. So you really need to be, I want to say, dedicated to it and have that. Like I know I will block off X amount of time, and I have a buyer as well that will work, and we kind of go through and make a list of what we're interested in, what fits within our business model. But it's tough. Like we might bid on 150 cars to win two.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, back in the day, in the 2000s to say, 2019, where we had the physical lanes, and it was actually fun going there. I remember being a part of it.
Yeah.
Buy a few, you could see them in person. It was actually quite exhilarating, to be honest. And then COVID 2019, and everyone started to kind of merge to that online. And I still think they're doing well. They're selling cars, they're making money. They figure, why would we go back to the physical auctions? And again, these dealers, I know they're so pressed for time. We're pancake thin. So sometimes online might be a little bit easier. I mean, you might click on 100 cars, you watch list them all, and you kind of make time to
Yeah.
go through them. But you better be on top of it because, like you say, and you're struggling with everybody else to buy cars. Everybody's kind of got the same idea. Everybody wants to be a hero. Everybody wants to kind of bring a good one home. So you're not the only one out there. You got to be sharp, and you better, be on the ball. And you have to use all the auction,
Absolutely.
not just
Yeah.
one. You might have a bad hit on one or a bad day on another, but you keep trying, and eventually you're going to have success, but you have to do it proper.
And I think the digital buying process is an exhausting process for dealers.
Yeah.
They have to read carefully what the disclosures are, because you're entirely dependent now on what's on that system. It's not like you said in the old days when you could kick the tires.
Right.
So you're relying on those photos, you're relying on those disclosures, and sometimes important disclosures aren't in obvious places. So you have to read the fine print, so to speak. So as I say, bidding on a car is an exhausting process, time consuming. But rewarding in the sense that you can do quite a lot from your desk now. You don't have to physically go to the auctions.
Well said.
Well, kind of anecdotally at our used car week conference in the Southwest in the US every year, we've had a couple sessions on buying cars, dealers buying used cars from the public, from the general public. Every year, sure enough, it is the most packed session because dealers are having to turn to other, especially, franchises. If trades are your biggest, source, I mean, you want to be able to figure out new ways to acquire those cars from consumers. So to shift gears a little bit, another topic that's come up a good bit today and yesterday was just the international trade, geopolitical climate. How are you seeing that impact used car operations at franchise and independent dealers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot going on in the world. I mean, we obviously know that. I mean, the political tension and the tariffs and right now, I think everybody's unsure. We have EVs entering the market here in Canada. I think consumers are a little unsure. I think dealers are a little unsure. I think everyone's kind of treading water a little bit lightly right now to kind of see where things are going. And then, all these things take a place. So I think that does affect the way dealers maybe want to stock their lots, and it does affect the way consumers think about maybe potentially buying a vehicle.
So we try to look for the silver linings when
Yeah.
we can in business. And one of the silver linings that I've been talking about since the tariffs became a talking point in the first place was that in the past, US buyers would come up here, the dealers would come up here with their strong dollar and buy the very best, the cream of the crop of our used inventory. And that hurt dealers in our market to an extent because it was harder to find those very sort of desirable used vehicles and trucks, pickup trucks in particular. Tariffs have actually turned the table to some extent because exporting of those vehicles is becoming more problematic. That inventory is now remaining here to a larger extent. So we're seeing inventory volumes improve and the best of those used vehicles also being available. So that's a silver lining. Whether that, the effect on prices over the longer term is a concern. So we watch that. We keep a careful look. But in the short term, it seems like it might be a good thing for our side of the market.
Good to see the silver lining, glass half full there.
That's right.
So you guys represent a different backgrounds of franchise dealer, independent dealer, executive board members here of UCDA. So what advice would you have for dealers in Ontario, particularly younger professionals? Why is it important that they get involved with UCDA, and how can they get involved with the organization?
I had a very interesting and nice conversation with a new dealer yesterday. This gentleman is a new Canadian, recently emigrated from Iran. A very well-spoken, gentle soul, and wanted to know about the benefits of membership in the UCDA. He felt that he needed some support, and I think that's the answer, Joe. New dealers in particular need the supports that we offer in terms of business guidance, but also just maybe a shoulder to cry on once in a while and get advice about how to navigate regulatory issues with OMVIC, the market, different laws that apply. We're a one-stop shop, so there really wouldn't be anywhere else to go if you had a question about a sale to a status Indian and how the HST would be handled for a motor vehicle dealer. He could bounce around offices for hours to get the answer. Call us and we'll give him an answer in 30 seconds. It's a gateway for new Canadians, our industry. And they come in with a little bit and they end up building a business and supporting their family and supporting their community and becoming very well off in the industry. And that's still the case. It's the Canadian dream. We're also here for established dealers, of course. And those that renew their membership with us are highly valued. We have a retention rate, which is second to none. And I think it's because of the offerings that we make ourselves useful to dealers. But it's the new dealers and those new Canadians that I find particularly energizing for me. They're entrepreneurial. It's exciting.
I love it. That's actually really well said.
Yeah.
Jim nailed it, honestly, like really well said. I mean, UCDA, great for the newcomers and even as experienced dealers. I could go to the website, I could call, and I could find what I'm looking for. Not that we don't know, you want to know everything about everything, but sometimes you might not be sure or the status or a tax thing or any, you should see the UCDA website. If you do have a chance, you go on there. It's well organized and has so much information for you as a new dealer or a used dealer. And I'm telling you, even coming around to, the membership retention, like people know what we can offer. And I think they love the encouragement that you guys have and the organization of the website and what it can provide for new dealers and established dealers. Coming back to like, getting the young people involved. Christy and I have kind of taken on new roles recently.
Yeah.
Not that we're super young or we're super old, but it's encouraging. We want to get involved because the used car industry is going to be shaped by, actions that we take and the next generation takes. So again, membership is one thing. I think participation is another.
Yeah.
So
Events like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. All this stuff is great. You get your name out there. If you are a younger person, you want to get involved, you can get involved with the UCDA, other many areas of the automotive industry. And eventually all these things get tied together. You never know where you're going to end up. Like who knew I was going to end up here talking today at this event. So really awesome. Again, the younger people sometimes provide a fresh perspective. That's always good too.
Yep.
So we get a
Yep.
bit of the old, a bit of the new, and yeah,
Sure.
it's great. All opinions from all around. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we've definitely fostered collaboration and from everybody. Yeah.
Education piece too. Like we've got education pieces too to help dealers with. One thing that I know that's near and dear to me with UCDA that we probably don't talk about enough is we also do a lot for all the dealers, and their surrounding communities in terms of charity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And we make sure that, dealers historically are very generous. They're very philanthropic. And that we also help supporters our dealers by supporting some of the local charities and stuff around them.
Yeah.
So that they can have an impact in their community so that, when that community is also thinking about, going out and buying that used car, they're thinking about going to one of the UCDA dealers who has supported,
Great point.
yeah,
Awesome.
that-
Yeah.
that-
No, well said. That
Yeah.
definitely being in the community and doing a part of that. And sometimes you got to spend a bit of money to make a bit of money and it may come back to you, it may not, but karma, right?
Well, and I think too, like especially for franchise dealers that, the average Joe consumer doesn't necessarily know all the inside baseball of the auto industry and franchise laws, might see a Chevy dealer and think, oh, I'm buying a car from, this massive corporation based in Detroit. No, you're buying a car from a small businesswoman in your community who's a local business, just like the coffee shop is. And I assume that like doing some of the community efforts helps reinforce that.
Absolutely. Right. Cause and I think one thing too, is sometimes, maybe people look at car dealers and have one thing, but we're great people and we're active in our communities. And, the UCD is great with supporting dealers. And two, if a dealer has a question, like, making sure that we're always doing the right thing. And that we're taking care of our consumers and stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, motor vehicle dealers are crucial to communities, large and small. And when you look at the number of people that are employed in the industry, if you really look at it in terms of how far out it stretches to suppliers, and you start including that, it employs hundreds of thousands of people, and in the US as well. It's a crucial industry and an important one. And we want the public to maybe know that, and we promote it, and we're trying to promote more to consumers about the UCDA so that they know that they can buy with confidence when they buy from a UCDA dealer.
Well, to close this out here, we're just about at the end of June, well, midway point of June. What are some of what's on your radar for the second half of the year? Any bold projections?
I mean, I think 2026 is going to be a year that I'm going to say we have to, grind a little bit harder,
It's
maybe
been grindy so far.
than
Yeah.
maybe the previous years. But that's one thing car dealers are great at, is we're super resilient. We know how to dig in and make it work. So I think it's going to be still a bit of a challenging year. I think there's going to be a lot of economic headwinds maybe ahead of us. But I know for me, I'm very, car dealers get it. So
Yeah, no, you got to be strong, mentally strong. And I know you work hard, I work hard. You got to put in the hours, right? If you want to be great and you do all the proper things, you should have success. But it will take a bit of responsibility and it will take some time and it will take the effort. I agree with her. The first half of this year has been a little tough. So we're just going to continue on. We're going to stay focused and we're just going to keep pushing with everything that's kind of, we started in 2025 and 2026 that we got to come together and there's a lot of new things. So if you are not aware, it's good that you be aware and get on board with all the new things that are happening.
One of the things I'm watching with some interest as 26 plays out, and maybe 27, is electric vehicles. We, as you may know, have struck an arrangement with China to have some imports of their electric vehicle offerings. And they'll come in as new vehicles, but of course, eventually that's going to be an aftermarket product. And in the aftermarket, we're still waiting to see some excitement on the part of consumers for electric vehicles. I feel like when the price point is right, the floodgates could open in that area, and that's going to be very interesting. So I'm watching for that.
I agree.
We'll leave it there for today, guys. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Great talking with each of you.
thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great.
Absolutely. And that'll conclude our live stage podcast sessions from Canada's Used Car Week. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for the live stage back at Used Car Week in San Diego this November.